everybody. Welcome to the Growing with Fishes podcast. I'm Steve, and we have a co-host today. Marty had an emergency and had to step out last minute. So we have a guy a lot of you guys probably know from Facebook. He's a big contributor to the communities. Goes by A. Leon. And why don't you say hi, bud?
Hey, everybody.
He was kind enough to step in last minute for us for Marty and fill in, and he's going to be talking to a bunch about his experiences. He's not growing cannabis right now, but he grows a bunch of other stuff, and he's a real big community contributor, and we thought it'd be nice to have him on the show, and we wanted to try and diversify the show a little bit. So and still make sure that we had the show on time this week because of Marty having an emergency last minute. So he had to step out, but he'll be back next week. Don't worry about him. Nothing happened to him or anything. He just had some matters he had to attend to. So this week we've had things have been coming along in Jamaica. We've been looking at a bunch of new land for one of the project that I'll be heading up myself down here, and that's been really fun. And then I've been working on some other projects. There's a project in the West Coast that'll be announced here soon that you'll get to hear a lot more on. And then I'm headed back to the States here next week, and that'll be nice I'll be able to do a lot more with the show. I won't be stuck on just my laptop and everything. So that'll be good. Hey, Leon, why don't you tell us about what your kind of setup you have right now, and then what you're doing and what you have been doing as far as growing and everything else.
As far as Aquaponics goes, because I'm in a rental situation way out here on the eastern slope, the people that I go through to rent, they don't allow too big of operations. So I just have a little 10-gallon aquarium with some goldfish in it, and I have a pair of the Aqua Duo filters for the 10-gallon. It works. I'm finding it works really well. It's decreased the change out for just a 10-gallon aquarium. Usually you do that water change out, every week with your normal filters. Instead, I change the water out maybe once a month, and so that's really great. Really saves me on water. It's just really nice to watch the environment as it develops, and the water doesn't really get too dirty, even with the goldfish. I mean, we all know goldfish are like, the muddiest fish around. They just love their own waste. And yes, that's really great that I only have to change the water out once a month on a 10-gallon aquarium. Inside the Aqua Duo filters, I'm growing sage so that I can use the sage cooking and stuff around the house. Unfortunately, just with the rental agreement that I have, and also the fact that I'm still on probation, I don't grow any cannabis right now or anymore for now. And the rental situation forbids me from growing cannabis, even for medical. And this is still here in Colorado, where we're supposed to be legal with it, but these rental agencies, and a lot of people here in Colorado have been noticing this, is that the rental prices have skyrocketed to double the price just in the last 2-3 years since recreational came about. But the rentals don't allow you to grow your own marijuana, which is like, they're charging people double and then not letting them grow their own marijuana, and it's like establishment rape at its finest, I feel. So it's made it really hard. But still, we still have the influx of people moving into Colorado. Everybody's rushing here and rushing to Oregon and Washington, even though rent's going up, and it's crazy. It's crazy. But yeah, so unfortunately, I can't do too big of an operation. When I was growing it, I had a 75-gallon watering tank, and I filled it with crawfish and grew aquaponic vegetables and cannabis for a medical patient. My mother was my medical patient, so I was growing for her, and I was doing really great. I was growing her 6 6 pounds every 6 months just by using crawfish and letting them grow to their almost full size. I'd only let them grow to 4 or 5 feet tall, all flowering and everything, and then I'd harvest them down for her. And so that was really great. I figured it cost me about 16 cents a gram when all was said and done because I wasn't spending so much on nutrients anymore. And I had learned about aquaponics years before while I was still living in Arizona. Arizona, with their water usage problems, you really always look for ways to conserve that water when you're doing gardening. And so when I had come across aquaponics, I was like, oh, I got to try this. And that was like 15, 20 years ago now, and it was absolutely awesome. You could just go and get a cattle pond, you know, the big steel cattle ponds, and raise your fish in that. And what we were raising was just goldfish. We didn't eat the goldfish or anything, so we'd grow the goldfish, and then we were using that goldfish water to water crops, and just grew a multitude of crops. And I was like, I was hooked right then. My life. I've just almost every waking minute is spent researching something or listening to other people's questions, answering questions online. And I'm sure, as you've seen, you know, when it comes to some of the more out there questions, I'm always one of the first ones to answer it because I've already researched these things and seen what other people have done and what I've done personally to make things work. And so I just love sharing what I know. It's been great.
So, how? Tell us more. You said you were growing. Tell us more about your aquaponic cannabis setup that you had there. You said you were growing. Tell us about your setup and how you had the, you know, all about it.
Well, with the aquaponics cannabis that that was about 3-4 years ago now, but when I was growing it, I had the 75-gallon water trough. I had about 150 crawfish in it, and I just went out to the local lake and caught these crawfish and brought them back and threw them in, and everything was fine. I mean, they were great. With that 75 gallons, it would cycle up to another bin for the bioclarification, and that bin gravity fed down to the cannabis plants and also pumped back over to a flood and drain system that I had growing the vegetables in. So I had the vegetables like tomatoes and lettuce and broccoli and you name it, I would throw it in there and grow it. And that was fed through the bioclarifier. And then the bioclarifier was also gravity feeding down to the floor level, and the cannabis was getting all the goodies, you know. And crawfish do tend to make a lot of waste, but because they're filter feeders, they really keep their water in a pristine condition. I can remember the water I had was crystal clear, even though there was sediment on the bottom from all their waste. And so I'd have to go there once in a while with like a snuffer bottle and suck up all the extra waste, and I'd fill mason jars with that, and then I'd use that as part of the ingredients with worm tea, and it just did magic. I mean, crawfish and worm tea, you can imagine, you know. It was really good stuff.
Yeah, the other thing, at least in a little bit of testing that we did, is that crawfish tend to have a much higher phosphorus level.
They sure do.
Than other things.
Yeah, they sure do. They sure do. They're really great. Their waste is really great as well from all their shell casings. Their shell casings are just calcium. So that calcium is fed to the plants in a micronutrient state that's already dissolved in water, and you're getting the phosphorus, you're getting the calcium, you're getting a little bit of potassium as well. There's a higher potassium level I noticed with the crawfish waste as well. So yeah, crawfish waste is just it's phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal. Everybody that's tried crawfish in their aquaponic systems. They swear by them, and you couldn't get them to part with their crawfish, even if you put a gun to their head and said no more crawfish. You know, they become a
Yes.
definite integral part of any system once you try them. Yeah.
So how did you have the route set up for that?
It was a somewhat of a dual root system, but they were gravity fed through the. I don't know if you're familiar with the auto pots. Have you heard of the auto pots?
Sorry, I'm still trying to move. The octopot? I've heard of octopots, but not the autopot.
Yeah, the auto pot is a little like the octopot, but except where. Well, no, it's pretty much still the same. But yeah, so it was somewhat of a dual root system in that the gravity feed was going down to these autopots that have it's like a little miniature toilet bowl kind of mechanism that fits inside of these trays that look a lot like dog waterers, like your automatic pet watering system. And the pots sit inside those, so it was getting this constant flow of the nutrients from the bioclarifier through gravity feed. And then whenever I noticed, I need some more manganese, or I need a little higher phosphorus, or if it was coming around time to start giving them carbohydrates, I could just add that right to the top of the autopot, and all it would do is just fill the reservoir up a little more, and the plants would get it, and that wouldn't pollute my aquaponic system. So it was pretty much what I would consider to be a dual root zone system, in that it was getting this constant feed of nitrates, and whenever I needed to add something extra, I'd just add it, and it wouldn't go polluting the whole system, and I wouldn't have to worry. But yeah, it worked great. The auto pots are really, I swear by them. They're really great. They're not too expensive. Well, the bigger the system footprint, the more expensive they get, of course. But yeah, they just work really great. I'll continue to use the Autopot systems into the future for sure.
That's cool. I haven't heard of those before. I'll have to check those out.
Yeah, I'll send you some links later on. They're definitely user friendly, real easy to set up. It only takes about 10 minutes to set them up. I had a 6-site system, and then another 6-site system for grow versus flowering, and I would keep rotating my crop so that I would always harvest something on time when my mom needed it, and it worked out really good, and it wasn't too expensive. It was maybe $500 for all 12 sites. Yeah,
That's
it
not
wasn't
bad.
too bad at all. Yeah, it wasn't too bad at all. So yeah, I really swear by them, and they automatically water themselves, which was just it added a whole level of ease to maintaining my system for them to just water themselves, and all I had to do is check them really once a day. Oh, it needs a little magnesium, and then I'd mix some Epsom salt and give it that without polluting the system, or the bioclarifier. Like, I didn't have to add anything to the bioclarifier. I'd just add it right to the autopot itself, and the plant would get it. And I was also a really big fan of using grow stones. I know people have seen me post about grow stones before, and quite a bit, but once you try grow stones and you prepare them properly, and because they do have to soak in a pH neutral solution, and I was just doing that in my bathtub, where I just add some pH down to it and soak them overnight, and the next day they were fine. But the grow stones, as they break down, they do naturally break down. That's one thing I found that the website doesn't actually tell you the truth on, is that they try to tell you, oh, they don't break down, they're not biodegradable, this and that. But they do break down, and as they break down, I've noticed they add silica to your plant, and silica is one of those trace minerals. Yeah, it's one of those trace minerals that not a lot of people realize they should actually pay attention to. Silica happens to be a crucial, in my mind, a crucial ingredient for any micronutrient solution, because it strengthens the cell wall and makes for a hardier, healthier plant overall. And yeah, the growth stones do that naturally over time, especially if you have worms in the system with it. The worms will help dissolve those silica particles into even smaller particles, and then your plants just, it sucks them up with the humic acid from worms. And another thing I liked about the grow stones is they really cut roots well. It just really turns stringy roots into a root ball. And when you got a root ball, as everybody knows, you're going to take up nutrients faster and more efficiently on your plant. Your plant's going to do that way better when you got this mass of roots, you know. Just,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah. In fact, we had a lot of luck when we were doing it in the back working my previous job in the experimental greenhouse. We would put like 4 bags of those in for every, maybe 1 bag out of every 3 or 4 bags that we would put to fill up a 4x4 grow bed is about 4 to 6. 3x3 is 4 bags. 50 liter bags of 4x4 I think is 8 or something like that, 7.5, something like that. Anyways, we'd use 1 bag as the grow stones for the silica addition, and the only problem we had is if you ever did like a whole system with it, it kind of adds too much silica and it raises the pH a little too much. So it's a great thing to mix in. It's just not a good thing to use as your base. Actually, give me a minute or two here and I can pull up a picture of I had a lot of good luck. I actually have some real good side-by-side pictures of some aquaponic dual root zone versus non-dual root zone tomatoes root structure.
Right.
Here we go. So this was from the lab that I took back when I worked at Aquaponic Source. Hold on, I think I have a horizontal picture here. Yeah, there we go. So these are 2 tomatoes, and they're back to back. And you can see the root size isn't even close. Like, it's just night and day different. Not even remotely close. And that's dual root zone. The bottom one is dual root zone, and the top one is just a tomato that was straight in the media without doing dual root zone. That was completely dug up real gently. Both of them were dug up very gently and emptied out. And these were anyone that went to Aquaponic Fest. This was that Aquaponic Source did. This is those tomatoes that were in the dual root zone set up, which I also have pictures of. But this was one of the things that we did for showing off to other people that, hey, this works really well. As far as people that, yeah, here we go. So, I mean, the size difference isn't even remotely close between, the one that was in the dual root zone had 38% more tomatoes. It had 44% more blooms. It was just completely, it wasn't even close.
Yeah.
And the reason is, even if you're not even supplementing, simply having the different part of the root structure that can house your mycorrhizae and your terrestrial microbes and lactobacilli and things that don't really like to be fully aquatic, to attach to the root zone, it gives them a place to live and to benefit the plant. You also end up with, because of that, more immunity to the plant as well, because it's more microbes that it has to fend off in the very beginning, or at least get used to. So it makes for it really strengthens the plant's immune system.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's nice to hear you preaching about silica. A lot of people still don't believe that, and it's so well documented in like soil agriculture, like field agriculture, where they do soybeans and corn and everything else. Especially the other one is if you're in an area and you have high sodium, sodium and heat stress, like in greenhouses, both of those silica dramatically nullifies the stress on the plant for both of those, much more than anything else you can do for the plant.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, like you were saying, that's one thing I've preached about before too, is having multiple types of media in your bed. And I see a lot of these aquaponic systems that people create, and they just use one media type, like the hydroton or the hydrocorn. And I'm
Yeah,
like, why don't they add some lava rocks or some pea gravel to it?
yeah,
Something else, because when you look at like a forest floor, it's not just one particle size.
yep,
Nowhere in nature will you find one size of particle except on the beach. And out on the beach of sand, what grows in sand? Sawgrass and nothing you want to eat.
yep,
Stuff. Yeah, yeah. If you want healthy plants that you can eat, or healthy plants that are going to flower and bloom correctly, you really do want to pay attention to having multiple types of media in your bed. And it's really easy to achieve that. Like you just add, I would say maybe to every 10 parts hydrogen, you would add 1 part of everything else. Like
yeah, yeah,
1 part grow stones, 1 part gravel, 1 part lava rock, and then 10 parts hydrogen, uh, or
yeah.
or any variation thereof, and bam, you've got a forest floor type of situation where it's not just one particle size. Yeah.
So other things that you could throw in your mix just to go on like time release stuff is biochar. Although I'm not personally a big fan, I know a lot of people that really preach that it works well. If for nothing else, it is a really porous material and it's great because it adds free carbon and it is a great place for your microbes to live and house them. So if for nothing else, it's doing that.
Right.
But a lot of people, believe in its other beneficial effects. I'll let you guys decide it on your own, but if you're a fan of biochar, definitely try that. And then langbonite, which is potassium magnesium sulfate. You can get that in a chunkier form, which doesn't dissolve quite as quick.
Hmm.
Dolomite, which is calcium magnesium carbonate, and high magnesium aragonite, which you can get at like the reef tank store or higher
Mhm.
end saltwater aquarium store. Are all great options if you're looking for something you can throw a couple of chips in, a handful in, the media you're putting in your pots when you're doing root zones. All of those can be, greatly beneficial to what what you're doing.
Right. Well, I'm sure there's a even a greater list. You could probably throw in things like crushed coral or crushed
Yep.
oyster shells. I, you name
Yep.
it, you could probably throw it in there. Right.
Just be one cautionary note. Just be mindful when you do any calcium carbonate. Don't put it in your
Right.
main media bed or put it in a bag so you can remove it later.
Yeah.
Because after about 6 months, the 6 to 8 months, the amount of calcium that's going to dissolve off of the surface that's exposed is pretty much used up, and it'll start to absorb some of your phosphate,
Right.
and it can screw with your phosphorus levels. I've actually witnessed in small systems when we overdosed it. It's kind of, you could see visually on the plant leaves some phosphorus deficiency after they were kind of too old. I don't know if that was because the calcium overdosed too much or if that was
It
because
was
it
absorbing.
was absorbing it, but one or the other. Um, I wasn't able to test that one, but you do want to be mindful that if you do it, you want to be able to remove it, or just putting a handful of chips, like I said, in the bottom of
Little
your
bit.
pot that you're going to remove later.
Yeah.
Just for the end of the cycle, which is about as long as you normally want to put it in there anyway. But yeah,
Right.
it's a great source. Just make sure it's something you are able to remove. Some people like to throw them directly in the media beds and stuff. Another silly one people do is the banana peels in the beds. That doesn't add any available potassium realistically.
No.
You have to get like 1,800 of them, and you'd have to like dry them and grind them into a powder, and then maybe like
Extract
maybe
the.
even
Yeah.
burn it. Burn the peels to get the potassium. So it
Right.
I don't know. It's not worth the effort unless you're like on an island like we are here.
Right. Or if you're feeding worms, if you want to supplement the worms diet, it'd probably be fine. Throw them some banana peels once in a while, or a watermelon rind, things like that. for worms. But yeah, no, like you're saying, yeah, you'd have to extract it to get any meaningful amount into your system, right?
Yeah, we're trying to find the best source we found for silica here is to use some of the freshwater sand here, and mix it in with our soil mix to have some available silica. But it's kind of hard to get any kind of available bulk silica here. Some of the things we're kind of struggling to find. But I'm
Yeah,
sure we'll come up with something.
right.
It's
Yeah, you
funny.
gotta sometimes work with what you can get. I hear that.
Yeah, we're doing this other little side project for someone. We're building most of it out of bamboo, which is going to be pretty dope.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely miss doing larger systems. This 10-gallon aquarium's great. It does satisfy that need that I have to do something at least with aquaponics. But like I said, I can't eat the goldfish. I'm not growing any crawfish right now, and that was one of my favorite things to do is eat my crawfish. Whenever I wanted, really. And they were actually breeding on their own right inside the tank. They just breed on their own, and I'd have little baby crawfish running around in the bottom of the tank trying to hide from the bigger adults. And within a couple months, I'd harvest them and have a little cookout. So I miss those things. I do. But even just having the 10-gallon system does satisfy that need. And I'm sure anybody that does aquaponics, once you do it, you develop this need that, hey, I've got to do this no matter what the system size is or what I'm growing. You just want to do it constantly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially 'cause I like it because I can show people when they come over, friends and neighbors come over and they're like, "Oh, what's that?" And then I can explain to them, and I teach something to somebody that had no knowledge about it, and that's probably the best aspect of at least doing something aquaponics, even if it's tiny, 10 gallons with two aqua duos, and it's a great learning tool for other people.
Mhm. Yeah, they actually it was funny. Somebody asked me today, like, what did you or what was one of the things that inspired you to do this podcast? And it was honestly it was listening to Dude Grow Show, the pot growing podcast, and he's just on every week taking random questions, and I've learned a ton about just different topics around growing that I wouldn't normally look up on my own. And I
Right.
thought, hey, why don't we do something similar with an aquaponic cannabis show? I'm trying to get people more into aquaponics, mainly involving cannabis, but sometimes not necessarily doing that as the whole episode. So
Well,
um,
yeah, definitely. And I've said it before that, if you want to get into aquaponics, but you're not sure about doing it with cannabis right off the bat, then at least try tomatoes, try some sage, try some
peppers,
lettuce, increase your
peppers are
knowledge.
great because you can
Yeah,
work on your LSTing, or you can work on your pinching and bending. It behaves just
exactly.
like a cannabis plant, and if you can get a
Exactly.
ton of peppers, you're good. You're going to be going at least a halfway decent cannabis plant. You might not be perfect, but you're well on your way. Plus, you have to watch the peppers for mites the same way. A
Right.
lot of the leaf curl is similar, depending for the different mite species in peppers. Not exactly the same, but it's a good learning plant if you're looking to not invest, or you're in a state that's looking to possibly vote in November. There's quite a few.
Right.
Um,
Get started now
yeah,
growing something else, and then you'll have that expertise as you grow. And aquaponics is a learning process. So even as experienced as I am, I still I find I need to get more light to my sage plants, but at the same time I need to keep the temperature of the tank down. So yeah, I'm still I still learn things as I go, and everything's a learning process. I don't think there's like anybody out there who knows it all, so to say, with aquaponics. Yeah. Looks like your audio or your visual might be dropping off. I think we lost you, Steve. Yeah, we lost him. Yep. Yeah, we lost him. How do I get him back? Let's see here. Still figuring out this Google Hangouts. This is the first time I've used Google Hangouts. Hmm. Oh, there you
Hey,
go. Yeah.
yep,
There you
sorry about that. Jamaican internet, it cuts out once in a blue moon. I get enough packet loss where it disconnects.
Yeah, it happens to me out here, the eastern slope too.
All right, let me look up in chat here. So, yes, it's live, Vincent Bradshaw. Um, where is it here? I was looking to see if there's any questions anybody had in chat.
Go
Sorry,
ahead.
where were we? I didn't mean to get to get lost there.
Just gonna roll myself a cigarette.
Oh, no worries. Since he's rolling that, I'm going to read off. We got an email today by from KDAC. Um, where is it here? Give me 2 seconds. I'll read it off here. This laptop's just a little dumb, especially when I'm streaming and all. I need to upgrade soon. Just gonna reload my email. All right. So I think I was trying the Autopot website, and that is autopot-usa.com. Is the name of it? Is the website that you had mentioned?
Well, they have one for the UK. They also have a site for Australia too.
Oh
So,
yes.
yeah, they are international. They're everywhere.
Okay, here's Kurt Bind or KDAC. He says, "Hey, hey, Growing with Fishes podcast. I have a couple more questions for today's podcast. If you guys have time, the ideal pH level for cannabis. Mine is currently at 7.8. So your pH, you want generally between 6.6 and 7, ideally. So 7.8, you're going to have some iron lockout issues and a few others issues. Um, can you use lemons as to adjust pH down? No, lemons have citric acid in them, and the use citric acid. Citric acid has citrate in it, which is very toxic to both microbes and fish, and in a closed loop will build up, and you don't want to do that. Um, Eggshells to adjust it up. You can, but you should microwave them to make sure you don't add salmonella to your system, or otherwise bake, sterilize them, bake them, wherever you want to go about that, and grind them up into a powder so they're more available. They have a higher surface area once you've done that. If you're going to do that, but in general, it's kind of not worth the effort unless you're really in a survival type situation. How large of a soil reamendment kit should I buy for roughly 50 gallons if I'm from buildasoil.com? I'm curious as to how far 15 bucks will go. I'm not familiar with that, and I didn't get this early enough to check it out. I just was running around the island this week, so I'll get back to you on that one, and we'll try to hit it next week. Um, so fish, is there any particular species you prefer? It really just depends on your temperature. If you're going to do a warmer water system, tilapia are great. Cannabis in general wants, 68, 66 degrees for ideal temperature, or even 70. And perch, channel catfish, any of your panfish, crappie, they all do good for that. That's really what I would recommend you for that. Um, Channel catfish are a great one. I think everyone should have a handful of catfish in their system. They keep the current and stuff moving at the very bottom of the tank. They help keep clean up after everything, uneaten food or anything else, or if anything gets injured or dies or whatever, they tend to consume it, or at least they'll poke it around enough for you to notice that it's there. And then it says, finally, can I get your take on this? I had an idea to raise crickets and give them basically PK diet. So I'm assuming you're talking about like gut loading them like you would for reptiles. How effective do you think this would be? You said last time Marty's worm bin does not provide enough potassium, even with the larger than average consumption of bananas. This crushed my stoner idea, I think. I also tried bothering Marty with this idea a while ago, and he didn't seem to think it would work. So yeah, I don't. I mean, yeah, you could gut load them, and that'll help a little bit, but you're simply not going to achieve your optimal levels to get them up. You could, if you have a good mix of, like, I love tilapia for the fact that you can feed them veggies much heavier in flour, and then in veg you can feed them a lot more insects, a lot more pellets, a lot more protein. You get higher nitrates, and then the vegetables tend to translate into higher phosphorus. In general, it's not, 1-to-1 or anything. It's just if you're trying to increase one or the other, those are two things to consider. I'd also like to know why both of you grow cannabis and aquaponics. I started doing it back, or allegedly started doing it back in the day, because it was the best source of nutrients I had, and we were trying to grow real covertly. Um, and I had access to lots of fish waste, and I had an ability to get pretty good nutrient analysis, and then had a pretty good idea of what I needed to boost around it. I was also growing with LEDs 12 years ago, maybe something like that. And back in the day, we were using like reef tank LEDs, and 10, 12 years ago, and we supplement them with like reptile UVB bulbs and stuff like that, and all different kinds of experimentation back in the day. So that's really how I kind of got it growing in aquaponics, and then I kind of just found a little niche to do it and really enjoy it, and then that was my job at my last job, and then now I was able to found a company on it. And now I just want to kind of spread it out there that, hey, this can work, and I'd love to see home growers successful, and I'm all about the home grow movement. And I kind of want to just get out there and share my my experiences and try and help people out, and you know, teach everybody else how to do the same. Um, Aquaculture has major advantages to a large farm. What about a personal grower? So the personal grower, you have better taste and cheaper overall cost. Again, like he was saying, it's so much cheaper to do fish feed, especially when you get to the scale where you start raising a lot of your own insects and stuff, or worms and things like that. It gets so much cheaper that you're only supplementing PK, occasionally micros, and iron. It's much cheaper, and you can get really good yields. It tastes so much better because you're not using chemical inputs, and you can load them up with sugars near the end. Get them, it's just amazing flavored, unlike anything else you've ever had. In fact, one of the people I'm working with in Jamaica, he wants aquaponic cannabis because the first time he had it, he said it was the best tasting stuff he's ever had in his whole life, and that's what he wants to get involved with. So plus, we had the ability to grow fish and all that here, but that was really nice to hear. Um, so, and
Well,
he
it
said,
does
"Thanks for
make
making this
for
hobby
a
better for all of
smoother
us."
smoke too. Yeah, exactly like you're saying. It makes for a smoother smoke, more robust flavor. Uh, like you're saying, towards the end, you can really load up on sugars because your plant just devours them like nothing else. The hydro, you tend to get a lot of nutrient lockup on your roots, so you have to wash those. That's what that flushing is all about in hydro, is to
Mhm.
dissolve the salts that build up around your roots, and
Yep.
when you're doing that, your plant is locked up and can't absorb the carbohydrates that you're giving it, like molasses or palm sugars. And you can go wild with what kind of sugar you want to give your plant.
Oh
It's
yeah.
fabulous. I love it. Yeah.
The guys down here in Jamaica like using soursop juice. They press the skins or take those semi-rotten ones or ones that got bugs in them or whatever, and squeeze them out and pour them on the roots of the plants that they keep for themselves.
Nice. Yeah, I've done fermented sugars before too, and it
Oh
is
yeah,
a noticeable difference. It's nice.
yeah, and it's not so much as the sugar that's going up; it just feeds those microbes, and they process, and it makes the plants produce more sugars. You're not
Exactly.
necessarily importing it into the plant that way. Some people think.
Yeah.
Let me go back to the chat here. Uh, yeah, so Vincent, if you go on my YouTube channel there, you can see I actually visited University of Technology of Jamaica, and posted a thing about it, my visit there. And there's also video from some other places I was in Jamaica. And we have a lot more videos next trip because this trip was setting everything up and getting everything squared away and working about the licensing and getting an extra client or two down here. And next time we'll be all building greenhouses and stuff. So it'll be fun later in a month or two. Just depends how long everything takes to ship. So that'll be a lot of fun. And we'll be back over at University of Technology of Jamaica here at some point as well to have a follow up and on their grow. We'll get that with some nice size normal looking plants there and get them all jacked up. I've been talking to them about how to help them out here in email the last couple of days. So it's been fun. Where's the else do I have here? Oh, so I was going to talk about phosphorus today. Phosphorus, there's plenty of different freshwater phosphorus kits you can get available. Um, the one thing I did forget to put on here was the range. So some phosphorus sources are rock phosphate, which is a real common one that people actually use for aquaponics. The upsides and downsides to that are that rock phosphate has no real good general availability, so you can't really put it into like a set nutrient calculator or nutrient builder or anything like that because Everybody's varies so much, and even like the vein itself that they harvest it from varies so much. It's kind of hard to get a decent measurement on. Um, and the shoot, come on. Okay, so the range for phosphorus, you're looking at target value. In veg, you're looking at around 20 to 25, and then in flower, you want to be about 35 to 40. Um, you can go up a little bit or down a little bit from there, but generally speaking, that's what you're looking at. Um, and then as far as sources, you also have monopotassium phosphate, which I think we talked about last week when we talked about potassium. That's a great way to add both of those. You can use it both foliarly or in the water. Just be mindful of how much you use. Don't go crazy with it if you're going to dose it in the water, but it is a good thing, especially if you're watering into the dual root zone. It's great. It's real immediately available and it works real well. Just don't use it real late into flower. Give it about 4 weeks to clean out. Calcium phosphate's another one. They also sold as triple phosphate. You can use that. Be sure you have you maintain your phosphorus to calcium ratios. Hold on. Let's see, the wrong one. I believe it was 3 to 1. Let me double check here. I have these all written down on my thing when I teach. It's been a long day and I smoked a lot of weed. So your potassium to calcium ratio, you want 1 to 3 or 1 to 4 generally to keep it both available, to keep it everything balanced. You guys can recall the episode a couple episodes ago where we talked about Mulder's chart. You can see about how balancing out your nutrients. It's kind of like keeping a disc-shaped teeter-totter where you're trying to keep it from falling. One locks out the other if you get it too high and vice versa. You have too much weight on that end. It imbalances the whole thing. Phos Boost is another great one from Keto Life. I use it a ton in my systems. And it's a fossilized seabird guano. That's the next one on here that I also have on here is any other fossilized seabird guanos. They're another great one. Because they're fossilized, they don't really have any chance of adding bad microbes to your system. Bat guano is also another one, although you should make sure it's sterilized or pre-sterilize it yourself or steam sterilize it or however you want to go about using it. Or just add it to your soil mix when you're using dual root zone and make yourself a good soil mix that's loaded up with good nutrients in it. What do you like to use for your PK boosting, or what did you use? Anything else aside from fish food with your systems, or did you have pretty good luck just heavily feeding them with the crayfish? I guess they're a little bit different as far as their nutrient output. I've only really used them once as the sole source. So, kind of, do you have any other stuff to comment about? Their waste or how that works?
I do. Actually, I tended to use, I would take spinach and broccoli, plants, vegetables, namely, that are high in those nutrients, and put them in a juicer, and then take the pulp with the juice and put that into a fermentation process, and just use the tea, so to say, of these of natural vegetables that you could grow in your yard that are already high in those nutrients, and it worked like a charm.
How long did you ferment it for?
Oh, just a couple days, like no longer than a week.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. And then just under the sink, at a dark, cool place where the temperature was level, a lot like brewing beer, but only for no more than a week. Um, just enough to get that cake on the top, and then I'd scrape that cake off and feed the plants the juice. And that worked like a charm.
That sounds. So, what did you do with the cake? You just throw that away then, or?
Yeah, yeah.
I know a lot of people use that. If you're ever doing the fermented brews, you get kind of like the cheese or the cake or whatever you want to call it on top. It's kind of gooey. It's great
Yep.
to put on fruit trees, or if you have trees,
Right.
trees love it. The mycorrhizae, it's a great way to feed them. So,
Right.
if you have this and you're brewing it and you're just like, what am I gonna do with it? I'm just gonna flush it. Don't do that. go whatever plant that looks like it needs a little help in your yard, put that on there. It'll help out a lot. Don't you should anytime you're brewing up that stuff, you don't really have any waste unless you just live in the
Right.
city and you just have all concrete and you have nothing else to put, no other plants.
Right. But yeah, you can even feed your lawn with it, or like you
Oh
said,
yeah,
just
it's
about
great.
any plant. But yeah, I was just throwing it away, or I would feed it to my worms.
Yeah, worms love it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
they're pretty good.
one of the other things I've been tinkering with a little. Um, one of the other things I wanted to mention that the guys, or the plant of the week that we'll do with non-cannabis this week is called culantro. Culantro is in the family of cilantro. It's just much stronger and more pungent. Some of the growers will plant it in around the root systems and stuff, or a ring around the plants to help keep a lot of the bugs from crawling up the stalks. So they're handful of homegrown plants. I've been seeing that quite a bit.
Yeah,
Aside
any
from they have a
any
few others.
plant from the garlic or the onion family will help do that. And walking onions, I actually have some in my
Walking
yard.
onions are a great one,
They
great
are.
one, and they survive colder weather too. They'll survive Colorado winter.
Yeah, they really do. Yeah, I've had here. I'll show you here. Got some walking onions. They're starting to bloom too.
Awesome. Yeah, no, if you want to give us a little tour, man.
Yep. Yeah, so those are the walking onions I have, and they do really great up here. They're just starting to make the little bulbits, and the bulbits are excellent in
Show it again.
salsas. Yeah, they're really tasty. It's not like the tuber itself. The tuber is really strong, really gritty. I don't really recommend eating the tuber itself of the walking onion, but the bulbits are excellent, excellent. And then my old garden from last year has like gone totally permaculture, and here I'll show you some of it here. So we got this is the spinach. This is last year's spinach. It came up naturally again this year. And here's some sage from last year. Came right back up this year. I think, yeah, yeah, sage there. And let's see what, oh, we got some lettuce too that's come back up. Here's some lettuce that's come back up. And
Very cool.
it's like gone totally wild. I haven't even watered it this year. I haven't done anything to it, and I'm still eating out of this garden a year later. So I love it. It's great.
That's awesome. Now, do you take any of your aquaponic or your fish tank water or anything and put that on there? Or?
No, actually, I feed that just straight to my rose bed here. I'll show you the roses. And last year they gave me no roses at all. Over the winter, I gave them the water from the fish tank once a month, and then this year it's blooming.
Holy crap!
Yeah, and it's huge too. I mean, it's like a 6 foot hedge here. You know?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and that's just goldfish waste. Nothing else to it. Last year they gave me like one or two little rosebuds, and that was it. But this year, I can't keep them down. So,
It's good. The rose hips are good for medicinal.
exactly. Yeah, yeah,
They're real high in, was it vitamin A, B, and E? If
yep.
memory serves me right, and vitamin C as well. I think I know that you can use them to prevent scurvy.
Right. But yeah, and they're fragrant too. Like when you put them in your salads, it adds a fragrancy, it adds color, and any nutritionist will tell you like when you add colors to your diet, you're stepping up your game and you're gonna be more healthy. So
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. Did you have anything else that you wanted to cover or touch on this week?
Oh no, that does it for me. It's been a pleasure.
Alrighty. I appreciate everyone for watching. Do you have anything that you wanted to plug or mention or shout out or anything? Or
No, just maybe mention, like I said before, if even if you don't want to do cannabis right away, you're unsure of aquaponics and how it's going to affect cannabis. at least try aquaponics for your home vegetables and just see where you can go from there. Even if it's a 10-gallon system and a couple of Aqua Duo filters or something you made yourself to filter that water in your a little aquarium at home, grow some herbs in it and see how it goes and taste them, and you'll notice the difference. You'll notice the difference, and then you'll want to try the cannabis next.
Yeah.
And that's how I got my start. Was I was growing vegetables in the middle of the desert on less water, and I was like, hey, wait a minute, I could do this with cannabis. And yeah, like I said before, everything's a learning process, so don't be afraid to have your failures. Failures are the most important part to anything because you're going to learn something from your failure more often than from success. So don't be afraid to fail. It's all, happens to everybody.
Absolutely. Do you have, do you want to leave it that people could get in touch with you if they wanted to write you or anything, or?
Just go ahead and find me on Facebook. I'm co-administrator with both Marty and Steve here in the Aquaponics Cannabis group, and I'm also an admin of the Aquaponics group on Facebook that has it's like 7,000 members in it. But yeah, just find me on Facebook if you have any questions for me or want to ask me something. Especially pertaining to the autopot system, because I've been using those for years now, and pertaining to the grow stones. Those are two things that I'm really well versed in with grow stones and the autopot. I've been doing those both pretty primarily ever since I first tried them, 10 years ago or so. So yeah, just find me on Facebook under Alien, and we'll hang out.
Sounds good. You guys can reach me at potentponics.com. There's a contact thing on there, or easier is write me at potentponics@gmail.com. I already also post on Twitter. I have the Twitter thing. If you guys are looking to find out when I
Oh, I think we lost him there at the end. Give him a couple minutes. I'm surprised my internet hasn't cut out. Message him real quick. Tell him we lost him again. Oh, he left. Okay. See ya. Oh, it's still live. Hold on. Okay. Stop. Hmm.
Sorry about that. We're gonna close out here. If you guys want to reach me, you can reach me at ponics@gmail.com, or get me through the website. And I'll also go to Aquaponic Cannabis group on Facebook. And I think that's it. I'm working on putting a formal page up on Facebook for the podcast that'll have a link to the. Trying to put a audio version up. We got a bunch of requests for that, so it'll kind of be a portal for all that. And yeah, we'll also have some more blog content over at Dude Grows as well. And thanks to realgrowers.com, Atria, and Kita Life for continuing to donate items to us to give away on a regular basis. We'll have some stuff to give away when I get back to the States next week and things like that. So thanks again for everyone that's donated items and things to help do this show. Thanks a lot, everybody, and thanks for joining us, and see you guys again next week.